Hello and welcome to Dark and Stormy Book Club. Today we visit with the fabulous Leslie Karst. Enjoy.
I'm Ann Dart.
I'm Tracy Stormy.
And I'm Kathy Knight.
And together we are
It Was a Dark and Stormy Book Club,
a podcast for mystery lovers.
Welcome.
If you enjoy our show, please consider contributing to the Dark and Stormy Patreon. By becoming a patron, you will help us create better and quality content. There are also benefits to becoming a patron, such as exclusive content and Dark and Stormy merchandise. Become a supporter at patreon.com/darkandstormybc. Check our website for the link. We appreciate any and all contributions. Thank you.
Before we start, I have to say this is not a mystery. We're taking a break from a mystery. We met Leslie Karst at Malice Domestic in 2019. She shared with us that she was writing a book about her dinner with RBG, and we are thrilled to include it and her in the Dark and Stormy family. Justice is Served, A Tale of Scallops, the Law, and Cooking for RBG is published by She Writes Press. When Leslie Karst learned that her offer to cook dinner for Supreme Court Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg and her renowned tax law professor husband, Marty, had been accepted, she was thrilled and terrified. A small-town lawyer who hated her job and had taken up cooking as a way to add a bit of spice to the daily grind of pumping out billable hours. Karst had never before thrown such a high-stakes dinner party. Could she really pull this off? Justice is Served is Karst's lighthearted, earnest account of the journey this unexpected challenge launched her on, starting with a trip to Paris for culinary inspiration and ending with the dinner itself. Along the way, she imparts details of Ginsburg's transformation from a young Jewish girl from Flatbush, Brooklyn, to one of the most celebrated Supreme Court justices in our nation's history, and shares recipes for the mouth-watering dishes she came up with as she prepared for the big night. But this memoir isn't simply a tale of prepping for and cooking dinner for the famous RBG. It's also about how this event and all the planning and preparation went into it created a new sort of connection between Karst, her partner, and her parents, and also inspired Karst to make life changes that would reverberate far beyond one dinner party. A heartfelt story of simultaneously searching for delicious recipes and purpose in life. Justice is Served is an inspiring reminder that it's never too late to discover and follow your deepest passion. We are pleased to welcome to the program an old friend, not old in age, but
And
here.
Leslie Karst. She has a book out we wanted to make sure we covered. It's called Justice is Served, A Tale of Scallops, the Law, and Cooking for RBG. Welcome, Leslie.
Thank you.
well, I was going to wear my RBG socks today, but it's hot, so I didn't wear my socks.
I wish you'd send the weather here. It's freezing. It's like 60 degrees.
Oh, really?
You're in California?
Yeah, Santa Cruz, and it's just freezing.
My girlfriend just got back from there, and she said it's called May Gray.
We've got June Bloom, May Gray, July, I'm going to die.
Right, because that's when it's 114 degrees.
No, it's cold. It's coastal California. It's cold and
That's
foggy.
true. But, it happens. So what an awesome concept for a book. Did you want to do this for a while? Was it just something that popped?
I know we've talked to you about it for the past about 4 years.
Yeah, right. Well, the dinner happened actually in January of 2006. So it's been a long time. And I'm driving home the next morning after the dinner, which took place at my parents' home in Santa Monica, California. Robin and I, my wife, now wife, then partner, thank you, Ruth, for that. We're driving back to Santa Cruz to our home on Sunday morning, and we're just chattering about, oh my God, can you believe what happened? And this, she said this, and this happened, and all the things that led up to it. And we all of a sudden stopped and looked at each other and said, oh my God, you have to write this down. It's amazing what happened. So we had a sheet of paper in the car, thank goodness. And I pulled it out. And as she navigated Highway 5 going north, we started brainstorming everything that led up to the meal from when I found out it was going to happen. Because a lot of crazy things happened. And if you read the book, you'll find out about those. So we wrote down everything we could remember of the conversation and what we talked about and everything. And then I got home and I basically wrote it out, on my computer. I wrote the story of what happened. I was working as an attorney then, and I was busy and I sort of shoved it away. And then when I retired from being an attorney, I started writing my Sally Solari mysteries. And then that took a lot of time, the marketing and the writing of them and everything, you know how that goes. And so it was years later that finally people started badgering me about it. Whatever happened to that manuscript? You should pull it out. So I pulled it out and looked and read it and went, this is crap.
As you do. That's good because you want to see that you have grown as a writer. Like if you pulled it out and you're like, wow, this is really the best thing I've ever written, I think we might have to talk a little.
Yeah, that's true. But basically, because all I did was just tell the story. This happened and this happened and this happened, which it's interesting for your parents to read, right? But no one else. So I said, but I think I can make this into a real memoir. Since so much time had passed, I realized that the event really had affected me. It changed my life. And so I started thinking a lot about that. And, for a memoir, usually that's the point of a memoir is there's some lesson learned or something or redemption or whatever. Right. So I started rewriting it and thinking a lot about me, but that was hard because I'm used to writing mysteries, about somebody else.
Yes.
And memoirs are about yourself and they're personal and hard to be that vulnerable and be honest. And that was definitely the hardest part about writing it. I'd never done that before. And that was really hard, but I did manage to do it, hopefully well.
Yeah.
But then I also realized as I was writing it that it wasn't just about me, it was also about Ruth.
Yes. So
I came with this idea of each chapter, they're what I call the interlude sections. So the memoir is written in the first person, obviously. And then these interlude sections in each chapter are written in the third person, and they tell little vignettes about Ruth and her life and her life's work. So some of them are personal stories about her and her marriage and her fashion sense and stuff like that. And some of them are about her legal. The reason she's so iconic in American jurisprudence, what she did, it's amazing. Very much important how she managed to do that. But I linked each one of them back to the story about me and what was going on with the dinner in each chapter. So
I love that.
Can you tell our listeners how you got to be this person who cooked for Ruth Bader Ginsburg? Because lots of people cook for her at restaurants and things like that, but you have a very special connection.
It was because of my father, and I explain all this in the first chapter of the book, but just quickly, my dad was a constitutional law professor at the UCLA School of Law at the time of the dinner. But back in the late 1960s, when he and Ruth met, they were both involved with comparative law. My dad was working on issues of Latin American land reform, and he was at Ohio State at the time, and I was just a little kid. And Ruth was at Rutgers teaching, and she was involved with, believe it or not, Swedish civil procedure. That's how she got her start in the law.
Okay.
They got to know each other because they would go on these conferences and things, and they met and became friends. And so they stayed in touch over the years. And when my dad was going to retire from the law school, he'd been trying to get Ruth to come out and speak, but she's got other things to do. She's kind of busy. So finally he said, Ruth, if you want to come on my watch, this is your last chance. And she wrote back and basically said she thought she'd be able to do it. And at that point I said, oh, I should come down and cook for you. It just sort of blurted it out, right? Because I had just recently finished going to culinary arts school. I just expected him to laugh, and he goes, that's a good idea. And I'm like, so anyway, that's how the dinner happened.
I make a wicked grilled cheese. And okay with that? I learned lots of stuff about cheesing the grill.
Well, when I saw the book, I thought,
okay, it's going to be a story of a dinner and then a cookbook afterwards.
Mhm.
That was in my head.
Right.
This book is so much more. It's the story of you and how you became a writer, basically.
Mhm.
And it's a story about your parents and their journey. And it's a story about Ruth's journey. And it was just so well put together. I loved every page I read.
Well,
And I
thank
could
you.
see you reading it. Said, there's Leslie. She's reading. She's reading this. And it was so well done. I just loved it.
Well,
And
thank
I
you.
want to cook these recipes.
I hope you do. They're not that hard.
Did you have to obviously find out, she had food allergies and all that?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah. It was interesting because people have asked me, how did you decide on the menu? And obviously that's, in the book. But what was interesting was that it turned out that there were sort of two things that were really important about that. I mean, obviously I needed to find out if they had any food allergies or didn't want them running and gagging from the table in the middle of dinner. But, obviously I wanted it to be really special. I knew that it was going to be the most important dinner I ever cooked in my life for many reasons. Partly, just because I wanted the dinner itself to be very special, delicious, interesting. I wanted it to be multi-courses. I wanted them to be different from each other, distinctive. I wanted them to be artfully presented. So there's that. But then the other thing is, as I started thinking about what I was going to cook, I'm like, well, I can't make that. I don't want to be in the kitchen the whole night. They're coming over to my parents' home for a dinner party. I want to hang out with them. She and her amazingly wonderful, lovely husband, Marty, and 5 U.S. Marshals.
Oh, goodness.
Yeah, you cooked for them too.
I did. Not the fancy meal. And
You're like, you guys get cheeseburgers.
They got the grilled cheese.
they got the grilled
Yeah,
cheese.
you got the grilled cheese. They're over on the
Happy
square
meals.
plate on the Happy Meal. I hope everybody's okay with onions and pickles.
Yeah, right. Exactly. I'd come up with these ideas and I go, well, wait, I can't do that. If you make a risotto, you have to stand for a half hour and stir it. And so I had to have this fancy, delicious, distinctive menu that could be mostly done in advance and just finished in the last minute in the kitchen. So that was the trick.
So she was out at the table while you were finishing things? Because
Yeah.
I'm horrendous at that. If I am at a dinner party, guess where I am? I'm in the kitchen. And I'm like, so what are you making there? And how does that...
No, they were good. They stayed away. They all stayed in the living room during the cocktail
Okay.
And then later they just sat in the dining room and they were all talking and it was fine because I did figure it out and it was quick. It was only about 5 to 7 minutes to do the last minute preparation.
For you. That is like chef's kiss planning.
I like to entertain. I've hosted maybe hundreds of dinner parties over my life. And I'm pretty good at that. And timing, it's all about timing. Making sure things come out at the same time. And then I'm just good enough that I'm good at it.
I can't even make sure that the quiche and the potatoes in the oven are done at the same time for Mother's Day. And that's one of the reasons that I was absolutely fascinated with what you have put out is that I haven't been able to read the whole thing yet, but the pieces that I have been able to read so far have been like, there's a lot of thinking involved in that. And that's awesome to see how that was going to progress.
She did a little larceny when she was.
Oh, yeah. Don't give that away, though.
Okay, I won't.
Leave something for the readers.
Yeah, we don't want to ruin the surprises.
Thought maybe we had to bail her out before dinner. But I'm sure Ruth Bader Ginsburg would have fixed it for you.
I would have given anything to see Ruth and Marty together. They really had a love story. Met when they were 17 and married for 57 years. I would have loved to seen the two of them together.
It was really special because they're a little bit of the yin and the yang because she's very much like you expect. She's quiet very much in her head, very cerebral, thoughtful, not a chatterbox at all. Small talk was not Ruth's thing. Funny, she had a wicked sense of humor, but she likes to talk about serious things, right? And whereas Marty was the, life of the party, warm. I mean, Ruth was warm too, but outgoing and friendly and would give you a bear hug and would tell jokes. And so between the two of them, they were an amazing couple. It was wonderful. And they loved each other so dearly. And he was so important to her career, which you'll learn about if you read the book.
Yeah.
Well, they're going to have to read the book. I mean, you've done the teasing, we've done the teasing, and done the hold on, don't tell that secret.
No,
I mean,
no.
anyone needs to read the book. I find it so interesting. So I'm going to ask a writer question. Who are used to writing not so personal, and you're writing your Sally series and, making things up as you go. Did you have to like rewire your brain to think in terms of, okay, this is a memoir now, I need to do this differently?
Other than the fact that it was so much more personal, because memoirs are what's called narrative nonfiction, at least mine is.
Yeah.
And so it is very much told like fiction, like a story. It almost kind of like the 3-act structure. And I think my voice is similar in the Sally Solari series and in this book, just because it's me. And writing narrative nonfiction, you do dialogue the same way you do in a novel.
Okay.
Obviously, I don't remember the exact wording of the conversations. And so those are all made up. I mean, not all made up. I think some of the phrases I probably remembered, but it's, you take a certain artistic license. And so it actually was very similar. It was fascinating for me to do that, actually, other than having to be really personal and have sort of a lesson to be learned in a way that, in a mystery novel, you catch the killer and justice is served.
You know what? Can I tell you how much I have been waiting for that? When I got on, I was like, please, Leslie, do that somewhere in here. I need that. I need this.
She did it.
You manifested it.
I vibe to you. Nicely done.
Okay, there you go.
Yeah.
I did that for you, Misty.
You're right that the voice, the part that I've read so far versus your mystery series, the voice is definitely there. For me, I would struggle with trying too hard to be too literally correct. So did you struggle with like, well, what exactly was said there? What should I make them say at all? Or did you just kind of go with the flow?
I decided from the outset that I wasn't going to worry about that because the gist is there. Every conversation that I recount in the book actually happened.
Okay.
I mean, there might have been some things when Robin and I are at home and we chit chat about stuff, but that's kind of made up. But it's based on things that really happened. And I can assure you that all the conversations at the dinner with Ruth and Marty did happen. Not word for word, because I couldn't possibly remember that. But those conversations about those things and in the way they were told are essentially the same. They're awesome. Historically accurate.
Now, have you had anybody from her family or from any of her close friends reach out? Have they read the book?
So actually, after I wrote out the original, just sort of this happened version of the book, I corresponded with Marty after the dinner back and forth. And one of the things that we corresponded about, and then we had a phone conversation about, is he gave me the recipe for his baguettes, which
Yes.
If you want that, Writer's Digest just published a piece that I wrote a couple weeks ago. So this is May 23rd. So it was probably early May if you look for it. It's called The Perfect Baguette, I think. And if you Google Writer's Digest and Martin Ginsburg and that, you'll find it. And it's a long, complicated, many-page recipe because he was a chemist and he was really into everything. It's his voice is all over that. It's wonderful. Anyway, so we kept in touch after the dinner. And I asked him at one point, I said, look, I've written all this stuff down and, I may make it into a memoir. I'm wondering if you'd be willing to look at the parts that are about you and Ruth, just to make sure I don't say something that would offend you or that is wrong. And he was so sweet. He goes, yeah, send it. I'd love to read that.
Oh,
so
wonderful.
I sent him the whole manuscript. I cut and paste all the parts about them and sent it to him. And he read it and he sent it back to me with notes. He didn't criticize anything. The notes he sent were things like, oh, this is great. And, oh, but you know what? You should add this too, because here's a great story.
Oh, wow.
That's awesome.
So wonderful. But I have this fantasy of him and Ruth sitting in bed at night and him reading it and chuckling. And she says, what's that, honey? And he says, oh, this is Leslie's book. But I'm sure she knew about it.
Yeah.
And he certainly did. And he absolutely gave me permission to do it.
My question is, how did you get the butternut squash off the wall?
Gotta read the book.
Yeah, butternut squash soup is messy. A sponge in warm water does the trick.
I
Well,
would just burn the place down and stuff.
yeah. What are you working on now?
I have a new Sally book coming out August 1st. It's
Awesome.
called A Sense for Murder. So that's turned in. In fact, it's gone to the printers. So that's pretty exciting.
Send
Gonna
us a
continue?
copy so we can check it out.
Are you going to keep going with Sally?
Number 6 is the last one, at least for
Okay.
now. I have a new
Oh.
series set in Hawaii where I live half time. The plan is for the first one of those to come out in April of next year.
Now, will
Where
that
in
be
Hawaii?
culinary type mystery
Uh,
too?
It's Hilo, where I live half time on the Big Island. It's not a culinary mystery like the Sallies are, but believe me, there's plenty of food in it.
My aunt and my cousin both live in Hilo. He is part of the fire department. I thought he was a fire chief, but don't
Oh.
quote me on that. His name is Christian Wong. And then my aunt is over there and lives on, I want to say she has a guava farm on a lava flow or field.
That sounds like Hawaii.
Yeah,
There's-
yeah. Her
Lots of,
kitchen has one wall because she doesn't even like to be in cars anymore with windows up. Everything has to be open
Yeah.
to her. And so her kitchen has one wall and the rest of it is outside. And I was
Yeah,
like,
you can do that there because
I
it's
adore you, but no.
warm. I mean, it rains a lot, but it's warm.
Are you going to pull in the things that make Hawaii into
Absolutely.
build
I've been
immunity?
living there half time now since 2007.
Nice.
So yeah, I know it pretty well. And
That's
you know,
awesome.
I often read books about Hawaii that are written by Howleys from the mainland. And
Mhm.
it's not that they're insulting or
No,
wrong particularly, but they're written definitely from a perspective that doesn't know the culture that well. And my hope is that this book, it is a fish out of water story. It's about a couple of gals who come from LA for vacation there. At least that's the first book in the series. They're going to end up staying,
right, as you do.
you know, I tell it through their eyes, but you learn a lot about the local culture.
Yeah. I was born there, but we left right before I turned 3. And I have not been back since. I wish I could go. Eventually I'll get there. But I am always fascinated because my aunt has been there since she was 18. And I'm going to say that she's got to be 71. I think so. She's been there for a really long time.
She's a local, yeah.
She actually went to college to learn the Hawaiian language and she teaches it sometimes. And so like, I am fascinated then by your story to bring in people who maybe are not from there, but they will, I'm sure, get themselves into trouble as well as the culture. Awesome. I'm excited. Sorry, I didn't mean to take so much time on that.
What publisher will that new series be through?
It's Severn House, the same publisher as my Sally Solari.
Okay, wonderful.
The first 4 Sally books were Crooked Lane, and the last 2 are Severn House, and then this new series will be Severn House as well.
Oh, nice.
Very good.
Mhm.
Well, Leslie, it was great talking with you. It was great seeing you at Malice.
Guys,
I wish you all the luck with this book and your new series. I can't
Thank
wait
you.
to read it. And
We'll feel like we're on vacation while we're reading.
yeah,
absolutely. Yeah.
we'll have to do a road trip, girls.
Well, I don't think it'll be a road, but
Right?
Well,
right.
road trip. Leslie, thanks for talking with
I
us.
always love talking with all of you. You just make me smile. Thank you
Oh,
for
good.
having me.
And our best to Robin. And
Okay.
you enjoy
Thank
the
you.
rest of your day. You're before us.
It's 3 p.m. here, so I still
Okay.
have a
Well,
bit
you
of-
have a good rest of your day.
Thank you so much, and aloha.
Aloha. Bye
Love you
bye.
all.
We're always happy to hear from Leslie. Please check out her Sally Solari mysteries. And the new one is called A Sense of Murder, coming out in August. So be sure and look for that. Now I have an announcement. We are going to be on vacation for several weeks in July. We normally rebroadcast shows from the past, but this year we're trying something new. So for the next 3 weeks, each one of us will have an episode of their own and they will record a short story that we have been submitted. So be sure and listen. Now it's time for trivia. Trivia. Last week's question was, other than a prolific mystery writer, what is Susan Wittick Albert's other claim to fame? A. Writing for a gardening magazine. B. She's a professor of English. C. She writes self-help books for women. Or D. She is the first female vice president of a university. The answer is all of them. She earned a degree from the University of Illinois at Urbana-Champaign and a PhD in English from the University of California, Berkeley. She became a professor of English at the University of Texas, Austin, and was a university administrator at Sophie Newcomb College in New Orleans. She became the first female vice president of Southwest Texas State University before she retired to become a writer. She also writes a column for Country Living Gardener magazine. There won't be any new trivia this week because we'll be on vacation for 3 weeks. We will resume in July. Well, that brings us to the end of another Dark and Stormy episode. I hope you enjoyed it. Leslie's always fun to talk to. Be sure and listen to our special episodes while we're away, and then we will be back with full episodes on July 28th. Thank you for listening. We hope you enjoyed it. And remember,
Life would be boring without a little mystery.
Bye.
Bye.